I would like to call this meeting to order for the public schools of Robeson County, August the 13th, 2024. Can we have a moment of silence? And before we have a moment of silence, we want to remember the families of Mr. Cornell Singletary, Miss Mabel Revels, Mr. Grady Locklear, all former administrators with the public schools of Robeson County. Before we have a moment of silence, I'd like Mr. Craig.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, also I'd ask to remember Miss Inez McCoy. She was a teacher for years at Red Springs High School, and she was, I don't think we still have it up, but we used to have a Hall of Fame at DPI, and you had to be a teacher for 50 years to have your plaque there. And she was the only teacher that I ever know of from Robeson County that her plaque was there at DPI. And I think also there's a classroom area at Red Springs High that's been named after her also.
Thank you, Mr. Craig. Moment of silence. Thank you.
I just want to say a word or two about these three that I knew personally. I want to say one thing about Mr. Cornell Singletary. He introduced me to fish and grits. I'd never heard about it. So one day I visited him and he said, I'm going to have fish and grits tomorrow. And I said, ugh. He said, just come and try it. So I went back up and it was delicious, and I thank him for that. I'm going to go, Miss Mabel Revels. She was from Magnolia, and she started her career late. Went to college late after she had her children. But anyway, she advanced quickly because she was a go-getter. Miss Mabel worked at Southside Ashpo as principal for years, so they knew her really well down in that area. Then she came to Magnolia and worked for many years. A passionate lady. She meant what she said, and she said what she meant. Once she retired, she was so well known that she became one of our first curriculum mentors for principals, and she worked at W.H. Knuckles for a long time, plus other schools. And I want to remember Mr. Grady, and I was sharing with the superintendent, Mr. Grady Locklear. He's the only principal during my tenure that had his assigned seat. No one sat in his seat at principals' meetings. He had his own seat, like, you know, in church, some of the elderly people have their own seat. Well, Mr. Grady, no one sat in that seat. So I just, all of these people had close ties to District 3 and throughout the county, and they hold special places, plus other people that have served as administrators and passed away. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Pledge of allegiance.
Please stand.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adoption of the agenda. Motion being made by Mr. John Simmons and a second being made by Mr. Henry Brewer. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So ayes got it. All right. Approval of the open session minutes. And then the motion's been made by Ms. Melissa Ocean, A second one been made by Mr. John Simmons. All in favor? All opposed? Ayes have it. All right, now we got information items. The first of the agenda is recognition of Mr. Mike Smith. Mr. Mike served on the board for 31 years. He served our school system, did a lot of good stuff for not only his district, but the whole county. You know, Mr. Mike served as a long time. I met Mr. Mike when he was working at the bank, down there in Roland. That was my first time meeting him, and sitting down with him and have a conversation with him. Mr. Mike was greatly appreciated. He loved Red Springs to death, but he cared about all the kids, no matter where you was at. And, he was a sports guy, and I love Mr. Mike to death. So that's my take on him. Mr. Dr. Wilson.
Mr. Chairman and members, if you join me at the podium, and we'll give everyone an opportunity to speak from that. And then we do have a presentation in honor of Mr. Smith. Please join me. I'm gonna give this to who to present. Okay. At this time, we open for comments from board members.
Miss Judy knows that there's no harm in anything I say, but I really love Mr. Mike. He and I went way back before Miss Judy came in the picture. So I thought I'd let you know that. But he was so sweet. He always had a smile, and anything I would say, he would look at me and say, "You kidding, aren't you?" So most of the time I was, but I'll truly miss him. He was always even-tempered. If he got angry, I couldn't tell. And I guess Miss Judy was probably the only one who could tell us if he ever did get angry, but we'll truly miss him, and I know you will too.
I'd like to say something on behalf of Mr. Mike, Miss Judy. When I first met Mike, I was at St. Paul's High School. I was very actively involved with the parent committee, and somehow or another, somebody got the word to him that I was going to run against him on the school board. And he came to me and he asked me about it, and I said, "No, I can't." He said, "Why not?" I says, "I'm in a different district. My kids were in St. Paul's for high school as a transfer." And he was glad to hear that. But anyway, as I later on, I came on the school board, I can truly say that Mike has been a great mentor to me. And it's like I told him when he was leaving, I said, "Mike, you're a very centered person. You reach out to everybody. You look at every angle. And from what I've seen, I've been very satisfied with the decisions that you've been making." So I think that's honorable to say. And I think it's a legacy that he instilled in me as a board member.
Student, son. I met Mike in 2000 when I went to work for Red Springs. He was working at a car dealership. I was at Red Springs High School. He came out there and introduced himself to him. From that moment, me and him formed a lifetime friendship that I'll never forget. The last time that me and him had a conversation, we went to Robeson High School graduation. And from there, he asked me to go eat breakfast with him. And we went to the Waffle House. And while we were sitting there, he said, "John, remember one thing, it's not about us, it's about the kids." I said, "Mike, you're right."
It'll be like Mr. Lawson. I said I wasn't going to do that. But I've known Mike for over 30 years. I knew him for over 30 years. When I came on the board, we just developed a close and deep relationship that became a great friendship. Mike, as Vontae said, he wanted what was best for children and everybody in the county. Now, trust me, he wanted Red Springs and St. Paul's, but he cared about everybody in this county. He called me many times. Is Sweat playing softball tonight, or is so-and-so playing, whatever? He wanted to be there and be a part of it. So he just had a deep love for this school system. And I know in 22, when he ran the last time, Mike was not feeling good then, Miss Judy, and you knew that, but he wanted to run. Because he shared that with me. He said, I think I can do it just one more time. And we had a lot of conversation about that. But now everybody knows and nobody's mentioned it. What's he looking down on today? If you don't know, where's it at, Monte? Red Springs is those athletic fields. If you ever talked to Mike in the last 20 years, his goal was to get those fields built at Red Springs. That was his goal. And I don't mind telling you, 8 years ago when I came on this board, I told him I'd do everything I could to help him. Because every school deserved their own athletic fields, every school, whether it's here or anywhere else. So Miss Judy, Matt, we thank you for sharing Mike with us, and we just thank you for what he has done for this school system.
I met Mr. Smith at a CTE event, and they put the two financial institutions side by side. I was the credit union, he was just the bank. And we bantered all day long about that, and we had a good time, and he had just the best demeanor. It was a true gentleman, and I am so privileged that I did get to meet him. And that was actually my first time meeting him, but not the last. So he was a wonderful person.
Mr. Mike and I shared the Red Springs area, and I'd heard about Mr. Mike all my life. You would hear Mike Smith in Red Springs was almost synonymous. And when I was elected to the board, it was probably the first thing he asked me was, he said, Terry, we want to redo some of the sports complexes or the sports fields in Red Springs. Would you support that initiative? And I said, absolutely. And he said, thank you. And I could just tell that he was so sincere in that. And he always, like someone else said, he always routed everything back to the children. And it was an honor. It was an honor for me to just knowing Mr. Mike. Thank you.
Judy and Matt, when Mike would come in office, and Patty can attest to this, in his own way, he would always let me know it is well with my soul, in his own way. And I was just so honored to have the opportunity to serve with Mike, a legend, really, to be honest, in terms of serving as a board member and for students. But Patty, again, he would always, Patty, let us know, right, it's well with my soul. And that is just wonderful. If we can, please, I see Ms. Brenda, you here. You served for a number of years. Do you want to say something? Please.
Mr. Chairman, Dr. Wilson, distinguished board members, I can truly say that my heart honor each of you tonight for what you're doing on behalf of Mike, because he did serve really over 33 years. And he was a jewel to our school district. He taught me how to keep documents. You know, so many of them taught me, but not like Mike. Mike knew the monies. And Mike kept me from having to call Erica, because I think Erica got tired of us sometimes. She never said it, but he taught me how to read everything that was on my budget so I could make sound decisions. And Miss Judy, you know my love for your husband, and Matt, y'all know. And I truly honor this board tonight for what you're doing, because it really touched my heart. And I'm trying not to be like Craig, because Craig is a crybaby, okay? But my heart is overwhelmed with joy tonight, and I didn't want to miss this for nothing, so I honor each of you tonight. God bless you.
Ms. Judy, can you come on up? Matt, come on up. On behalf of the public schools of Robeson County and the board members here, we'd like to present to you this representation of Mike. This was his baby. The Red Springs complex, this is the Red Spring football field with his name on it. So we just want to present that to you, Matt. Thank you.
I want to first say thank y'all for all the kind things that you've said, and I had wrote some notes in case I was asked to say something, but Mike was a good man. I don't know how much I'll be able to say. He didn't see color, and he did love all the children, and he helped everybody that he could whenever. It didn't matter if we got calls all the time at home, but he loved all people of all races. And I've seen every race come to the house or call him. And I never saw him help one more than another one. One of the best qualities, and I've heard so many qualities said about him, but Mike was a good listener. He didn't just listen to speak. He listened to understand. And I think that's a great quality to have. And I think all of us could probably learn from that. I know I can. Sometimes he used to tell me I talk too much. But if he were here tonight, I can say that his wish, his hope, his prayer would be that the members of the board, the faculty, the students, the parents would all continue to work together for the common goal of making the public schools of Robeson County great, a great place to be a part of, no matter what your role is in that. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Give me some.
Please. Step in
Step in front. Now we will move on to the 2024, 2025 board committees. You received the ones in your packet. You see who the chairs or the committees are. You received it in your packet. What I want to say about the committees, you can go to any committee meet. Everyone can go to any committee meeting. I want you to go to committee meeting and get informed. When you have time, you can go to any committee meeting you want to. I would like for you to go and show up to other committee meetings. Like I said, for you could just learn. And, you know, when we come to the regular board meeting, we already know what's going on. All right? Thank you. Open house events, August 22nd, 2024, 1 to 6 with Jessica Seeley.
Good evening, Chairman Leach, Dr. Williamson, and board members. Just want to remind our parents, we have our open house events at all of our schools, August 22nd from 1 to 6. And our principal meet and greets for WH Knuckles and Tanglewood will take place at those schools at that time. So just so you're aware. Also, our back to school celebration event is Saturday at the Southeastern Ag Center from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Please come on out for free book bags with school supplies and a wonderful day filled with excitement to kick off the school year. Thank you.
Jessica, so today was the first day for students at the early college. Can you update us? There is an article at your site, board members.
Yes, the early college high school students went back to school today for their first day. They had a wonderful day today, and we have a news article up on our website. Check it out. So, and their open house took place yesterday.
The homeless monitoring results. Ms. Freeman, Dr. Freeman. Okay, hold up 1 second before you go up there. Mr. Craig, you got to. Oh.
Dr. Williamson, it was mentioned to me, all the open houses are that day 1 to 6. I asked that something could be sent out from the central office to all the principals. I'm sure they will, but to work with their teachers who have children in schools, to allow those teachers time that they can leave their school and go visit their child's school too. So if they would, just please keep that in mind.
We will address that tomorrow morning.
Okay,
in our meeting.
that's right. Having a meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Craig.
Okay. Well, I'll try it a third time. So good evening, Chairman Leach, Superintendent Williamson, and board members. It is indeed a pleasure this evening for me to stand on behalf of Shanita Nance. She is unable to be here this evening based on a family emergency, but I want to sing her praises this evening, although she is not here. I'm very blessed to have a wonderful department, and she is one of the leaders within my department. With that being said, I'll have on the screen for you very quickly the McKinney-Vento. Oftentimes you will hear it noted as the homeless program. In the department, we like to call it McKinney-Vento because in that way, there's a different ring to it. It is a law that we have to help families who are homeless and keep their children in school. If you'll notice, there are some of the resources that we do here at the district level with McKinney-Vento students. You'll see the educational resources that we provide to students each year and ongoing throughout the year and throughout the summer. We actually provide instructional support, tutoring, preschool, hotspots, etc. If you'll notice, we provide support services as well, such as case management, referrals for health services, hygiene kits, clothing, and transportation. It is indeed my honor this evening to announce that we received an audit on June 19th, and we received the results just about a month ago, and it was a perfect audit. It was a clean audit, and that's exciting news for us, but that goes without saying of the hard work that Ms. Nance provides. I would like to read you just a short snippet that was in an article that DPI sent down on behalf of Ms. Nance. Ms. Nance is diligent in her work with the district's homeless education program, and she ensures that the identification and enrollment of a student experiencing homelessness is in alignment with the law, and all that students receive the appropriate services needed for their academic success, said Lisa Phillips, State Director for the Education of Homeless Children and Youth at NCDPI. This is what's so important to me. Ms. Nance works closely with the North Carolina Homeless Education Program to ensure compliance with the PSRC. As a member of the North Carolina Homeless Education Program leadership team, Ms. Nance also demonstrates exceptional qualities as a leader in the field and one who is always striving for quality education for our most vulnerable population of students. Would you please join with me? She is watching, I'm sure. Would you please join with me this evening and give her a round of applause, most deservingly.
Thank you. Now we have federal programs update by Ms. Jennifer Freeman and Mr. Philip Oxenine.
Each year annually, we submit our narrative, our various grants to the Department of Public Instruction, and we're required annually to provide the overview of what we're providing in federal programs as we move throughout the upcoming academic year. You'll see that we're still following the ESSA, which was amended as Every Student Succeeds Act in 2015. We are a district-wide district, meaning each school within our district receives Title I funding. And so we actually provide the various programs throughout the state. Actually, we're often told that we carry everything the state has to offer. And so it is a lot of work for us to do, but we do a good job, I believe, in administering those funds. But most importantly, the good job that we do, and the reason we do that good job, I hope, is because as was said about Mr. Smith earlier, is that he always had one vision, and that vision was for children. And I believe that's essential with the work that we do. So if you'll notice on the screen, those are the grants that we cover in this district that I supervise. There are various other grants that are federal that I don't provide direct supervision for. But tonight we'll be spending several slides on covering those, but just snippets and components of the work that we do. We want to bring attention, as you'll hear, we want to bring attention that this year we did receive less allocation for the federal dollars. For Title I, we received $15,295,000 and some dollars. With that being said, that was a reduction of almost $1 million. As you'll notice, those two areas that are red are the areas that will indicate that we received less funding. You'll see up in Title I migrant, you're going to gradually see that number going up in terms of the funding that we receive because we're recruiting more students within the district. You'll see those numbers, and you'll see that currently we have a total of $18 million that we provide oversight directly for within the district in the department in which we serve. Very important piece, not going to take very long to explain that, but it's very important that folks understand that Title I is supplemental. We cannot supplant. It's simply this. And I used this example earlier today, if the state allocates Red Springs High 35 state teachers, then they must receive the 35 state teachers. Then Title I can go in and we can add additional teachers in the building once the state allocated funds are administered. So that is simply supplementing, not supplanting.
Good evening, Chairman Leach, Dr. Williamson, and board members. I'm going to take a few minutes to explain our community eligibility provisions. This essentially defines how our district is allocated funds and would justify why we have nearly over $900,000 reduction from our 2023-24 school year to 24-25. That calculation is driven by our poverty and population data that comes from our census, as well as our number of neglected students that we have in our facilities across our district and our number of students that are in foster care. For Title I, we have 15.2 million, down from 16.2 million from the previous school year. We have increased the number of classified and certified staff due to maintaining our instructional framework of support by withholding our ESSER academic coaches as well as our ESSER TAs. Part of what Title I allows us to do is, once again, improve basic programs from a supplemental perspective. We support Title I pre-K, we have migrant tutors, McKinney-Vento, as well as family engagement. For Title I Part C, which is migrant, that was an increase to 159,000, as Ms. Freeman already alluded to. These students that experience or are labeled as migrant experience frequent moves, educational disruptions, cultural and language differences, which makes it hard to receive instruction, as well as health-related issues. We have a migrant recruiter who helps to identify and provide resources for those students in order for them to be successful. Title II is to support effective instruction as well, and that is supervised by Dr. Carr and her team. Their allotment also experienced a reduction as well. These are some of the programs that are supported for supporting effective instruction and some of the strategies that are utilized under Title II. And for Title III, our English language acquisition, we employ multilingual teachers. We get a state allotment. We also supplement that allotment with Title I funds as well, where we hire additional multilingual teachers to assist those students who struggle with language acquisition. That budget for this year is $279,000 approximately. And these are some of the things that we do with those funds. We hire additional assistants, and we also host family nights specifically for the multilingual population. We have a program for our immigrants as well as a STEAM Day at UNCP. For Title IV, we support student and academic enrichment. We provide a variety of incentives. One thing that we want to discuss is the budget. The budget didn't significantly decrease in Title IV this year, thankfully. What we do with those funds, we purchase Second Step, which is a program to ensure we have a mental health initiative across our district. We also purchase ACT Boot Camp, which is a preparatory program to assist with our ACT performance, and a variety of other initiatives out of Title IV. Lastly, McKinney-Vento, as Ms. Freeman has already alluded to, is part of what we cover through our federal programs. And do you all have any questions for us at this time?
Mr. Terry?
On slide 11, Title I, Part A, there's a section here where there's a bullet for YDS dropout prevention. Is that for youth development specialists?
Yes, sir. Dr. Connie Locklear over the IEA program, she requested that we employ her youth development specialist to go out and do some of the summer work to ensure that those students are located properly so that they'll be enrolled in school.
So the work that they do during the summer is through Title I?
Yes, it has varied between various resources throughout my history here. This year, we picked it back up and we've added it back into Title I because it is for dropout prevention. Yes.
Thank you.
Dr. Emmanuel, then Mr. Craig?
What is the process? At one point in time, high schools did not receive Title I. Do we each year have to go through some process to get them into the quotient, or tell me about that?
High schools have been in Title I believe, since around 20, I know they were in Title I. I believe they went into the Title I budget in 2017.
Yeah.
They're in the budget each year annually. And yes, each year we do the community eligibility provisions as Philip was describing. So each of our schools actually currently receives Title I funding.
I understand that, but do we have to, is it a board decision that they apply? At one point in time, there was a decision made, maybe Erica knows something about it.
Miss Erica?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. So the high schools have always been eligible.
Mhm.
Prior to, it was a board decision to only include K-8, pre-K-8. And then we would have to show that we were giving those high schools additional funds since we were excluding them in Title I. So now that they're included, there's not any additional information, but it is a decision. You can exclude them, but you would have to provide additional funds in another source. So they have always been eligible, but the focus was K-8, pre-K-8, excuse me. And now we include all the locations.
Well, I guess my question, are we allotting them 069 and 031 monies at like we used to? That was how
We
done it.
are at the same rate as all the other schools. Previously, we had to grant them additional funds, so they had a different funding formula since they were not included in Title I. But now the funding formula for 031 and 069 is the same for all the schools.
Okay, I have another question, and this has been asked, maybe other board members have been asked this. Have you had any dialogue to fund any kind of, or go into partnerships with the communities and schools in Title I? Have you had any requests for any kind of funding support or anything with communities and schools?
Previously, we did have a partnership with Community and Schools several years ago, but that partnership was taken, the funding was actually given out of another grant source. So at one time, we did appropriate that, but I think we're probably into the third year of not providing those partnership funds out of Title I.
Dr. Carr, do you want to address that question also?
So we've received requests of not specifically for Title I, but for funding. But based on our current funding, we were not able to extend any further funding to support any more positions that are not currently already in community schools that we're supporting.
I'm aware that we support 3 positions, maybe retired positions, but this was programmatic support. Maybe we'll discuss that another time. Erica?
So there is programmatic support for 3 schools, and forgive me, Dr. Manning, but I think it's
Red Springs, maybe?
Red Springs High maybe, or Middle. There's 2 other schools. There's 3 total that are not being paid out of Title I, but have been picked up out of those 69. And we continue to support those 3, but as Dr. Carl was mentioning, there were not additional ones adding. But those 3 are $9,000 each. Those have been picked up out of those 69.
Thank you.
And are still in place.
Thank you.
Wrong thing. Okay. Okay, let me follow up with that. Because I remember maybe last month, we approved some, about 3 positions with CIS. Are we, and these were what I understood are people at our schools that are providing tutoring services. Okay, and we did that last school year. Now, this coming school year, are we still providing those services to those same schools? So we're doing that. Okay, was there a request, and we can talk about it later, was there a request for more?
Yes, but keep in mind, we've been cut $1 million+ dollars. And again, we cannot afford to fund any additional positions. We can only budget to maintain those positions. But a loss of $1 million+ dollars, we made a decision that we can't to extend that.
Okay, and the ones I can remember were high schools. Okay, next question. Ms. Jennifer, I'm on page 9 and 10. That Title I allotment district-wide, that's the total amount, that 15 million that was on page, that 15 million is the total amount, right?
Yes, that is,
Okay.
that is the title, that is the allotment that we received this
Title
year.
I.
Yes.
Okay, a couple of breakdowns. I think I asked for a couple of things last month, just to go back and look. Now, that Title I staff, that's the classified and certified. That includes academic coaches, various people at school.
Yes.
Does that include any of our APs?
No,
Okay.
Title I cannot fund assistant principals.
Okay. My question is then, maybe next month, I'd like to see a breakdown of what's the monetary value of that Title I staff? How much are we spending there in classified and in certified there? Now, this is a used to, don't know if it's the same case. Title I used to would hold some money at the central office for various things that could come up throughout the year. So do we still do that? In case, and I have no idea how much it would be, but do we still hold just in case? I know we're not holding it after the school year, it's gonna be spent, but do we have to be safe and keep some things there just in case things come up?
What we actually do is Title I is funded based on a needs assessment. And so the needs assessment continuously drives the work that we do. We actually each year do what is called 2 divisions of the funds. One is we do district set aside, and then we actually do the school set asides for the schools. With that being said, I'm looking at some of the set asides right now. When I arrived, and it still continues, we were funding Title I pre-K. Out of that funding source, we put approximately almost $3.5 million in that. And we certainly can get you how we do the district set aside, because the district set aside, the reserve that we provide is for needs. It is basically divided out into personnel, and then we have a percentage that we have to use for family engagement, and then we have various other pieces. We also put aside an amount for professional development, but we, with Title I, no longer can do a one and done, meaning years ago, we were able to use Title I funds to fly to New Mexico to see A, B, and C. Without that having a continuation of academic performance, we're no longer able to do professional development out of Title I, a one and done or one and stop and done. But what we can do is we provide professional development to the district as well as to the schools, and we can continue. But we can definitely break that down for you, Mr. Craig, because we keep a color-coded outline of what we do so we can manage the money effectively. But as we move forward, each year we are required to carry over. We can't have more than a 15% carryover. And with that being said, I believe that we're somewhere around the 3 million threshold with carryover. So we're approximately 18 million, including the threshold. But most of the funding is to provide staff, and we can definitely provide that information to you. But a large chunk of the money that we send out into the district is for personnel. But at the district level, we can only do a small percentage of set aside for district personnel in the district set aside budget.
And one last follow-up, which it wouldn't be to you, but in the workshops this week, it has been discussed, academic coaches are everywhere. We got APs everywhere. And like I said, I'm a proponent of APs everywhere. But that's the reason I'm wanting to know, how much are we spending? Just because we sometimes get asked those kind of questions, how much is this costing? And if the AP, ever who it's coming from, if that is coming from other resources, if we could have that also, what's the APs costing to have them in every school? And again, don't let anybody think that I'm not supportive of that. I am definitely in support of an AP being at every school in this county. So if we could get I'd like to just have to see how much money. I like to see dollar cents.
We can take care of that. Also, Jennifer, if you will, please, when we make a decision in terms of what do we fund or not fund, we start with the conversation, is that a duplication of services? Or can we provide those services? Or are we providing those services within the building? And so when we look at that and we ask principals, we offer several opportunities. The one that they really wanted was a CNA, Certified Nursing Assistant. That was critical. Jennifer, if you would speak to that. So that was a priority from the principals and how we make decisions in terms of what do we fund and not fund. Would you speak to that, please?
Yes, I will definitely speak to that, but I want to take the group back briefly for one quick moment in time back to ESSER. When we actually are talking about Title I now absorbing the academic coaches, what we were charged with in federal dollars and we were charged from the state level is sustainability and maintaining the current instructional framework that the schools have put in place. So part of the reason that we've added actually several positions, meaning the SRTAs as well as the academic coaches, is because when we were giving ESSER funding, what was shared from us is at the very beginning of ESSER is you need to be needs-based, but you need to be able to sustain what you're doing. In terms of the CNAs, what we do is we actually ask for input from the principals. When we were going through COVID, CNAs go all the way back to COVID when it was at its height, might I say. And I was actually acting as the nurse supervisor without a nursing license, which was very unusual for me at that point. So we actually garnered support from the principals early on. And what they were saying is, we don't have a nurse in every building. How can we get an assistant to help us when the nurse is not present? So that's the evolution of how the CNAs evolved. And as a result of that, we've continued to monitor throughout the past few years, how productive are your CNAs? Do you feel they're reliable? Are they providing assistance? Are they providing guidance? Have they made a difference in your building? And do you want to continue with those services? And the absolute response was yes, because they're a powerful piece of the department goals that we have in our building, as well as the being able to sustain the health, quality, and safety of our schools. I know back in the year, very briefly, we did have an incident, and I am so grateful that we had a CNA at one of our middle schools, because that CNA actually helped to save what we thought could be a potentially life-threatening situation for one of our students.
Mr. Chair, and again, if I may, and Ms. Craig, you asked us to remind everyone of the difference in the funding that's available to us this year with the loss of ESSA. Erica, will you remind us all of those dollar amounts again, please?
Yes, sir. So when we added in all our ESSER funding, we were very close to $400 million of a total budget, including all of our funds. With ESSER ending September, we're going to be back to our normal, quote, normal budget of $235 million. ESSER 3 alone was slightly over $100 million, and we have all those dollar breakdowns for all of the ESSER funds. I've actually provided that in a previous board meeting to show all the new PRCs and all the funding that was infused in the district. So we are seeing a substantial loss there, but to address the APs can only be paid for in 3 funding sources that we receive. So our 005 position allotment, DSSF 024, and 069 at risk. So that's where we would be splitting those additional positions, because the allotment from the state for APs, you'd have to have, last count, I haven't looked at this year's, but previously you'd have to have over 900 kids to be eligible for a full-time 10-month AP, which, as you know, most of our schools do not meet that criteria.
And so not only have we been cut $1 million in Title I, we have also been cut $1 million in 69.
That's correct.
Yes.
Any more questions? Thank you, Ms. Freeman and Mr. Philip Oxendine. Next, we have fiscal monitoring contract and audit by DPI, Ms. Erica Setzer.
Good evening, Chairman Leach, Dr. Williamson, and board members. You should have received in your packet a copy of a transactional audit that was conducted by DPI. At any given point, we're subject to audit. We could be contacted by DPI, any state agency or federal agency, as we are recipient of several different funding sources. We were first contacted in March 19th of 24 by Michael Jordan. I saw that name and everybody knows where my mind went, but it's a different person. So he has a normal job at DPI. And we were asked to provide all federal transactions in a spreadsheet to him. And they broke it down and looked specifically at contracts. So anything 311, 312, staff development, there's a list that they gave us, and we provided all that documentation by the 28th, which it was due. And it was for a period of July the 1st of 2023 through January 31st of 2024. There was a 2-hour interview I conducted with Mr. Jordan virtually on April the 17th, and we've received the report as July 19th. As you can see, it's included and no issues were noted, and Robeson County Schools contracts review is closed. So we just wanted to bring that to the board's attention, and we'll share with our audit team that that is another audit. We've also had the audit on the bonuses we gave our employees that also had a clean review. And I can answer any questions anyone has at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Erica, for
Thank
that clean audit, and thank you for what you and your staff do. Now we have DPI bus inspection report by Dr. Guzman.
Good evening, Chairman Leach, Dr. Williamson, board members. Hopefully in your packet, you received the letter that Dr. Williamson and I received from the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction in regards to our bus inspection for our whole entire department. Not only I want you to, before you go through this, please remember, it's like golf, lowest score wins. So the lower the score, the better. Consistently, we are in our range. We usually score mid to higher 20s. And then last year, DPI inspected 10% as they are required by state statute. Inspected 22 buses, and our inspection score was a 28.55. Unfortunately, that was a little higher than previous years. Unfortunately, last year, we were not inspected as were other areas within our district. That was through no fault of our own. And you can see we had a slight jump going through. Other than that, our department works very hard. That also not only reflects our department, but that score also reflects the work of the school bus coordinators who ensure that the reports and the TD28s and 18s and information comes to us. It's also very important because if a bus gets parked from the DPI inspection, if there was an error or something that was phoned in by the bus driver that day that was reported to dispatch, that does not count against us. And so bus drivers also play a role in doing their pre and post inspections, and also with their maintenance of looking at the buses daily through ours. So as you can see, quite proud with the 28.55. We consistently also beat our regional average. And so that's presented within there as well.
Any questions for Dr. Guzman?
Dr. Guzman, remind us again, please, how many buses we run daily and the miles that we cover?
The miles vary, sir. We are still calculating those miles because last year was, to be honest with you, our really first full year back. We like to say last year is normal. We'll present that, but we actually run about 238 buses daily. That's both regular and EC routes to go ahead and transport our students. Luckily, through not only our efforts with what we have here, but also with our efficiency rating that I presented a couple months ago from Tim's, our budget has been pretty strong and have not seen great reductions. However, we all see reductions in our budgets through the state going through. So we only get our funding basically from the amount of students that have that ride the buses, and that's usually conducted in September. And for that part, we are back to what I would say pre-COVID numbers going through with that. So on average, about 22,000 students at some point throughout the whole entire year end up riding our buses. Please know that school buses are still the safest and most efficient way for students to be able to be transported to and from school. And so it's imperative that we also make sure that we're doing our part, not only to be safe, but also be efficient stewards of money.
All right.
Thank you to you and your staff. Job well done.
Hold up, I got a couple of questions. Mr. Trey Britt, then we're gonna have Mr. Henry Brewer.
Dr. Guzman, I got a couple questions. One, obviously 22 buses were inspected by the papers that we got.
Correct.
How many of those were activity buses?
None were at that time frame, sir, because when May 1st was actually during the inspection, we had everybody out during that time frame. So there was a request to make those activity buses to be inspected during the summer.
Are we going to get that report too?
That should hopefully will be conducted by DPI tomorrow. Our consultant's supposed to be in the area tomorrow.
And they're
to
checking
confirm.
every bus in the activity bus? in the
No,
county?
sir, they will go through 10%. Also during that time frame, they flag older buses, of course, to go through for inspection.
Did they pick that 10% or do you pick the 10%?
They pick it. I have no control over any vehicles that go through. DPI goes through with some that are already gone, and then the inspector comes on scene and goes ahead and inspects those buses. I have no control over what vehicle from the DPI inspection that gets selected.
And you said you were going to get us that report too, right?
Hopefully, if he comes in tomorrow. He's scheduled to be in our district tomorrow to go through some of the finalization with the summer, as well as to go through with those inspections.
Thanks, sir.
Mr. Henry Brewer?
Looking at physical inventory reporting, can you explain that to us?
Yes, sir. During this time frame, that's a very minimal loss of inventory due to that time frame. Sir, to be honest with you, we've had turnover in the department. A lot of young mechanics, also our cost clerk 1 and cost clerk 2 have gone through and are brand new. So it's a matter of going through and making sure that they understand systems and making sure that those corrections are made. When you have that type of turnover going through, there is expected to be some loss, and was very pleased on the amount of loss. Of course, you don't want to have any loss, but when you have new staff that are coming into the position, especially in the time frame that was so truncated right before this inspection was conducted, it's a testament to those people that are in those positions and the knowledge that they have to make sure that that information is there.
How do we stand now with our funding as us and associated to what we had in previous years. I know we were always a little short in transportation. Are we about equalizing now?
Sir, there's a big shift with what's going on, unfortunately, due to budgetary constraints. Our area and transportation overall throughout the state are losing contingency funds. So there was funding that I could apply for twice a year, once each semester for early college. There's also contingency funds for catastrophic events that happen to vehicles. So if certain things happen to a machine, we were able to, depending on what it was, to apply for those funds, which this year we were able to get funding that we reported on earlier. However, those funds are being eliminated. Contingency funding is not as, it's going away, to be quite honest with you. As far as what our initial budget right now, our reporting from this year was just recently sent in with TD1s. The legislature over the past 2 years since COVID has occurred wanted to know some numbers beforehand. So based on our budget simulator and everything, we currently have, Erica, correct me if I'm wrong, around 8.1 budgeted to us. There will be a second round of going through with that information once, of course, state budgets are finalized. And they'll go through and give us the higher of the amount of what is done during that time frame once the state is finally reported with everything. We are not, usually our end of year for our TD1 is due in August. Of course, we sent that in, and that is so that we can deal with our funding, because we really are funded based off of our student ridership. And so that also, like I said before, comes in September.
Ms. Erica?
Thank you. I was just going to reiterate, yes, so our initial allotment in the previous year was around $7.8 million, and presently it is $8.1 million. And the increase is, of course, the increase in the salaries. The state has included that in the new allotment. So we are kind of on trend there, but as Dr. Guzman and I have said many times, we don't receive enough transportation funding. It's been overspent every year I've been here except COVID. We normally have to supplement anywhere from $1.5 to $2 million annually to cover that because of the size of our county. But it is on trend for the state funds we've received. As he indicated, we won't have those contingency funds, but we still will have to cover what we normally do in any year.
Dr. Guzman, what are we paying for fuel per gallon?
I would have to go back and look at that, sir. On average, each month, I can guarantee you we pay about $20,000. If you actually let me step to the computer, I can tell you what we just got in a bill from being filled up for yesterday. So yesterday, and I've got off of this total fuel amount, I do not have it desegregated based on what was for not only our fuel amount, but yesterday for our total was about $60,000. We on average, like I said, for diesel fuel is about $20,000 each month of what we have to go through for fuel. Now, of course, now remember, please, that's for to and from. 056 only pays for fuel for to and from school. So we have to go through and make sure we're accountable to schools, after school programs and other things to be able to get that money back. And that's why they get billed. Schools get billed, other groups within the school that use those buses, 21st Century, other tutoring programs during that time frame have to remunerate that cost, because 056 funds technically only covers to and from school transportation.
All right, Mr. Terry.
So on the last page of this report, there's like, there's 6 recommendations that's noted here. And it's my understanding that this is conducted annually.
Yes, sir.
Is there a way that we can, before we received this report next year, is there a way that we can receive an update on the progress of these recommendations, maybe sometime later on in the academic year before the inspection takes place?
I don't see any way, any reason not to, sir. To be honest with you, this is probably going to sound a little harsh. However, some of these are just standard to include going to NCPTA conference, and some of those are standard ones that the regional inspector always puts in. And normally, typically, we have 3. Like I said before, with the changeover in cost clerks and others, there are some additional ones, especially reporting with BSIP, that we've already handled. And I'll be more than happy at any point in time to provide an update on the status of any of these 6 during that time frame.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gooses. And next, we will have public comments, but there aren't any. We have action items. Easement of the old central office, Piedmont Natural Gas, East Robeson Primary, Duke Energy, Mr. Bobby Locklear.
Good evening, Chairman Leach, Dr. Williamson, board members. In your packet, I included 2 easements for your approval tonight. Both of these easements have been presented to our attorneys for review, and they have thoroughly reviewed these and are willing to accept these. The first one is for a natural gas pipeline easement at the old central office. It would be, the best way for me to describe this would be the old dirt park on the hill. The central office sits down. This is right beside Canton Drive. And so Duke Energy is willing to reimburse us for that particular easement the amount of $2,898. So we're asking for your approval for that easement tonight.
All right, we got a motion on the floor by Mr. Henry. Do we have a second?
I'll second it. Does Mr. Schwartz, do you need to be looking over this for you?
This is for the Duke Energy easement.
Yes.
They're listed in the reverse order on the
Oh, I'm
agenda.
sorry.
So just want to make sure we're dealing with the correct one here.
Yes,
I'm sorry, this was the full, yes, that's right. The Piedmont, Duke is working with both of them, but yes, Piedmont is taking the lead on the old central office. I'm sorry.
Okay. So this is for the old central office, Piedmont Natural Gas.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks.
A motion being made by Mr. Henry, a second being made by Mr. Trey Britt. All in favor? All opposed?
Okay. The next easement for your approval is for Duke Energy, and this is for them to place 2 light poles on our property at East Robeson. These light poles will not provide power to the school. They are only to provide residential power, upgrade the residential power down beside old Allenton Road. So they are asking for permission to place those utility poles on our property.
We have a motion on the table by Mr. Bradley Phillips. Do we have a second? A second by Mr. Henry Brewer. All in favor? All opposed?
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may, Bobby Hope, can you update us on where are we with upgrading of our lights by Duke Energy, and that's at no charge to us, correct?
Yes, so at 2 of our high schools where we are building our multi-purpose classrooms, part of that project was, of course, we built additional parking. So with additional parking, we also had to upgrade lighting at both facilities, and those will be Purnell Sweat and St. Paul's High. So Duke Power currently has both of those projects. So they are currently going through an old lighting on our campus. If they are expired or past the timeline, then they are upgrading those features. New additional lighting, of course, in the parking lot and in and around the buildings will be installed once the project is at completion. So at St. Paul's High, new lighting will be placed all down Old Stage Road and Championship Drive. There will no longer be any need for the parking lot lights that are currently in the parking lot now. We will have new lights between the gym and the modular unit there, and lights down beside the building. Purnell Sweat is the same way. We will have lights in and around both facilities at the back of Purnell Sweat.
Any,
And hopefully time frame should be, those lights should be completed within the next month or so on both of those projects.
Mr. Curry?
Mr. Bobby, probably totally separate item, but I think a couple of years ago when the LED lights was placed at football fields, it's my understanding the LED lights at Sweat were not changed, or they wasn't provided to be LED. So I don't know if that can be looked at this time. It's totally a different concept what you're looking at. But if it can at this time or sometime, please be checked.
Are those the portable lights?
No, I'm talking about actually on the football.
On the
field,
football field.
actual
I'm sorry.
football
Okay.
field lights,
Yes.
not the portable.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. EC contracts for Dr. Wendy Dorsey-Carr.
Good evening, Chairman Leach, Dr. Williamson, and board members. I'm here tonight to get approval for some additional contracts for EC. I do want to make one correction. In your packet, you have a vendor for deaf, the hard, and hearing. That should actually, for both of those, be the total amount combined, the $190,000, not two separate. It's two different teachers. Also, I want to disclose that Ms. Jamie Lowry has let us know that Miss Elizabeth Lowry is her daughter, and as a result, the contract will be overseen by myself. Elizabeth has worked with us for several years, but as she's moved into this position, we want to change oversight of who oversees that contract. Any questions about the contracts?
A motion being on the floor to approve the EC contracts, Mrs. Trey Britt. A second being by Mr. John Simmons. All in favor? All opposed? Thank you. Now we have the North Carolina prayer certification and single set of insurances by Miss Jennifer Freeman, Dr. Jennifer Freeman.
Good evening again. At this time, I'll yield to Mr. Phillip to share that information with you.
The purpose behind the North Carolina prayer certification and the single set of assurances is simply to comply with the state law and federal law that we are not to adhere or prevent any student from participating in prayer at school if they choose to do so. That is the first part of it. The second part of it is complying with all of our ESSA requirements. There are several statutes 1 through 7, the first of which ensures we are administering the programs under our title programs effectively. We are monitoring or controlling our funds. Additionally, we have to ensure we are adopting appropriate methods of administrating our programs, which we do comply with. We also have to ensure that we are carrying out our evaluations. We received our most recent audit. It was also clean. The fifth, the applicant will use fiscal control. Ms. Erica is in conjunction with the state finance department to ensure we are complying from a fiscal perspective. And then the sixth is that we submit our reports as required, and we do so. We submit our grant application through CCIP. It is approved, and then we move forward with the implementation of that grant. And then lastly, step number 7 is that we have to ensure that we have given the stakeholders in the community an opportunity to provide feedback on the assurances.
All right. Dr. Emmanuel?
This is a lawyer question or a Philip question. Explain to me and probably the public if they're listening, how is this congruent with the no prayer in school, Mr. Lawyer? Help me. I mean, it sounds not to be flowing with that, or somebody.
You want me to respond to that? There is no prohibition against prayer in school, and in fact, the federal statute that's cited here requires, as a condition of receiving the funds, that we certify in writing that there is no policy that prevents or denies participation in constitutionally protected prayer in the public schools. And so Article 29D of Chapter 115C of the General Statutes in North Carolina, which are the public school laws, specifically authorizes and protects the right of students to pray in the schools at appropriate times, when they're not being directed to do something else. So anybody who's ever taken a math test knows that there's prayer in schools.
Okay, I guess I can see that individually we can pray, but so why can't we pray at a board meeting then? That's my point. That's where I was going.
Okay, the reason why we can't pray at the board meetings is because it's imposing prayer on people as a condition to coming to their governmental body. So the government can't impose prayer on people. We can't prevent people from praying. We have to allow people to pray at appropriate times when they could be on their private time doing anything they wanted to. So if they want to be making their grocery list, they can be making their grocery list. If it's on their private time, if they want to pray, they can pray. But the government can't impose prayer on people.
Okay, and I'll hush this. Give me an example in a school when you said when it's appropriate. Okay, I know before test the kid could pray now.
Mm-hmm.
Give me an activity in school where the kid, it's okay for the kid to go to, that they can pray. Give me it.
Well, anyone can pray on their private time anytime they want to.
But there can't be an assembly where they can pray.
If they want to sit in an assembly and pray, they can pray to themselves, but they can't
somebody leading
disrupt. They can't pray out loud and disrupt the assembly.
Oh, so you couldn't have an assembly and say, today we're going to pray, and let me start with John 3:16. You couldn't have a public assembly in school, just like for all Christians to come in. You couldn't do that. Is that correct?
That's correct. Now, under the Equal Access Act, if it was a student-led after-school non-curricular activity, they could have a Bible study group, they could have a prayer group, they could have a chess club, they could do anything anybody else wants to do. You can't discriminate against religion, but that is, if you allow any other types of activities, you allow religious activities that are student-led non-curricular groups. But you can't impose that upon the students and say, now we're going to have an after-school activity. You all come here and then now we're going to lead you in prayer. It has to be student-led.
Thank you.
Mr. Curry Lowry, then Mr. Trey Britt.
Excuse me. Let me follow that up with one other example. We're having morning devotion this morning at the library at 7 o'clock. Anybody wants to come can come. And it's led by students. Is that okay, Mr. Schwartz?
Prior to the school day?
Yes, starting at 7 o'clock. You're going to start at 7 o'clock.
Okay, and who is inviting them?
The students are doing it.
That's fine.
Student-led.
That's a student-led
Student-led.
group, that's fine. Okay. As long as you would allow any other student activity at that time.
Mhm. Teachers couldn't lead that.
That's correct. You just could not lead that.
Mr. Trey Britt.
That's what I was going to reiterate. There's a group I know that gets together at Purnell Sweat in the morning times early, but it's student-led before school starts, and that's what Mr. Schwartz reiterated.
So we do need an action item on this. We need action on this, correct?
Yes, each year we have to submit,
Yeah.
when we get ready to submit our narrative for federal funding, we have to provide these assurances that we're in compliance and alignment with what the law requires. And so, yes, we are asking this evening for action. So we can submit our grant for federal funding. We have had that funding allocated, but we have not received it yet.
Okay. We have a motion on the table by Ms. Melissa Olsen. We have a second by Mr. Henry Brewer. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Thank you. Monthly financial report by Ms. Erica Setzer.
Good evening again. I did want to mention in your monthly financial report, we have a budget. So we had a continuation budget in place. I will be moving forward, bringing the 24-25 operating, so you'll start seeing those dollars in there. And in case anyone was curious why we have expenses in some of those areas like classroom teachers and so forth, the state health plan does not allow us to pay June hospitalization in the month of June. So we have to defer that to July. So we pick up the June and July and pay for the July. Hospital insurance is paid for 12 months regardless of the how many months the employee works. We withhold extra from employees that are less than 12-month employees. So that's why you'll see those expenses there. And I can answer any other questions anyone has at this time.
I'm gonna
Mr. Terry Locklear.
I'm
Mr.
gonna
Terry?
go back and sort of ask a question based on something that came up earlier during the federal programs update. So, it's my understanding that we have several employees, assistant principals, and maybe some academic coaches that were being funded out of COVID funds.
Correct, ESSER 3.
Okay, so since those COVID funds are going away, what's going to happen with the funding for those individuals?
So they're going to be split between multiple funding sources. Title I is going to pick up the academic coach. Assistant principals are going to be split between 3 state funds, 005, 024, and DSSF. Obviously, if we're picking up that cost, we're going to have to look at eliminating other costs. And that's what we've been doing after our summer retreats this summer.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. What is being affected by those moves?
So there are some, for one, we're going to continue to use ESSER funding through September. We're going to continue to keep people in place and pay them with those ESSER funds through that date. We're also going to look and see, I am currently monitoring through each month. If we have remaining funds, we may pick up all TAs out of ESSER or all APs out of there. We're going to monitor that as we go. So picking up those few months will give us room in those other budgets for this year. Now, moving forward to the next year, that's where we've made the request to our county commissioners. We're continue to review programs and different things we have in place to see how we're going to continue that process. We're also going to use Title IV 108 to pick up CNAs.
Do we have any update for the budget from the county commissioners?
No, not at this time. Not at this time.
Not this time.
Hey, Ms. Erica, just reiterate, even though our ESSER funds is running out, nobody's losing their job and stuff.
That's correct. We have reiterated that.
We planned for this, and you have planned for this, and the cabinet have planned for this since last year, and nobody's not losing. Will you reiterate that to, I guess, to the public and some of us here, that nobody's losing their job?
That's correct. We have been saying that. We started this planning process part of last year, but we solidified it March, April, somewhere in there, and let the staff know. And as we indicated at that time, that may not mean that everybody moving forward through attrition, we may eliminate some of those jobs, but we're not going to have any person in place that loses their position.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may, Erica, again, remind us in terms of our local budget, what we requested, what we were funded, and then the intent, according to the commissioners, when they would take a look again at what we requested. Remind us of that, please.
Yes, sir. So our current appropriation is around $653 per child. We get $13,360,000, I believe. Our request was for an additional $6 million, which would put our per pupil expense around $936 per child. At this time, the county has indicated they would like to defer a decision on that until December, because that's when all of the appeals and everything from the reevaluations of property will be finalized. They have indicated at this, they will give an additional 1.3 million. And we have started receiving that. We receive it, one check each month. And then they're going to reevaluate by December for the additional remaining amount between the 1.3 and the 6 million.
Thank you.
All right, a motion's been on the table by Mr. Trey Britt, and a second been by Mr. John Simmons. All in favor? All opposed?
Thank you.
Ayes have it. Thank you, Ms. Erica. Mrs. Melissa Ocean? Hello, let me get you, I'm sorry.
It's okay. I move that the Board of Education for the Public Schools of Robeson County go into closed session for the purposes of discussing certified and classified personnel, North Carolina General Statute 143 through 318, 11A1 and 6, and to consult with the attorney retained by the board in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the Board of Education for the Public Schools of Robeson County, North Carolina General Statutes 143, 318, 11A1 and 3.
Closed session, motion been made by Mr. Melissa and the second been by Mr. Trey Britt, closed session. Melissa?
come out of closed session. It needs to be recorded, right?
There's been a motion to come out of closed session by Mrs. Trey Burritt. There's been a second by Ms. Melissa Ocean. All in favor? Aye.
Motion approved.
Well,
Motion to approve personnel.
there's been a motion to approve personnel that's presented by Mrs. Trey Britt. Do we have a second? A second by Ms. Krista Monroe. All in favor?
Need to approve, recuse.
You need to note for the record that Mr. Brewer, Mr. Phillips, Mr. Simmons, and Mr. Lowry have all asked to be recused from voting on this due to having relatives on the list, on the personnel list.
All right. It's been a motion by Mr. Trey Britt. It's been a second by Ms. Krista Monroe. Also, Mr. John Simmons, Mr. Henry Brewer, Mr. Craig Lowry, Mr. Bradley Phillips recused themselves because they have family that's on the list. So everybody, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it.
Passes 7-0. 7-0.
Yep, pass 7-0, yep.
Now make a motion to approve closed session minutes from June. What was those dates again, Mr. Schwartz?
June 18, 2024, and July 9, 2024.
It's been a motion to approve the closed session minutes by Mr. Trey Britt of June 2024 and
June 18.
June 18, 2024, and July the 9th, 2024. There's been a second by Ms. Melissa Oceans. All in favor? All opposed? Ayes got it. Do we have anything else? Motion to adjourn by Ms. Melissa Ocean, a second by Mr. Henry Brewer. All in favor?